Well, it seems that we may be getting brand new games coming to Game Pass via Microsoft. And this is an interesting idea. Phil Spencer gave an interview Thursday, that's yesterday as I'm recording this, in which he talks about the problems with new developers and small developers bringing games out. And at one point in the interview, he mentioned Sony and their first-party studios, and he talks about the fact that teams like Naughty Dog are rare, really, and he says that Sony do a great job of producing narrative, story-driven content. But he says that's harder and harder to put out these days. And he wants to make it so that small developers can produce games as service. But more importantly, and more interesting to me, he's talking about allowing developers the chance to develop story-driven games in a context whereby they've got the freedom to do it and the time to do it because they haven't got the financial pressures. And this is where Game Pass comes in. It means basically you can have a situation where you can create story-driven games in an episodic way. Now, anyone watching my channel knows that I'm not particularly keen on episodic games. But my problem with it isn't the actual format itself. It's to do with the fact that often you're paying up front for a game and then you're not getting the content. But if you bring this under the auspices of something like Game Pass, where you're paying an upfront fee in order to get a whole raft of games on a monthly basis, then that gets rid of that problem. It gets rid of the issue of paying up front for games and then waiting for them. Because in effect, you're not just paying for this game, you're paying for a service in which you get lots of games. And Spencer cites Netflix and HBO. And if you look at Netflix and HBO in the States, where people pay a flat fee and then they can get those programs episodically, then they can watch, things like Walking Dead, they can watch things like Game of Thrones, and they pay their monthly fee and they watch those programs as they drop. And often in those cases, sometimes they'll drop all at once on Netflix and you can watch them all at once. But it does mean that you can have episodic content and you don't have to worry because there's always something else to watch. In this case, there would always be something else to play. And I think this is actually really exciting. And I think that Phil Spencer's showing himself to be pretty sharp here. The sort of game I like, the narrative-driven, character-driven game where, it's maybe an action game, whatever type of game it might be, where, it's not this huge, sprawling open world where you keep getting new content dropped in that you have to keep buying and so on and so forth. Those games don't appeal to me particularly. But the sort of game that does appeal to me, and I mentioned this in my previous video, those games are dying out a little bit. They're not popular at the moment, but there's still a market for them. And if something like Game Pass could create an umbrella whereby new developers can come in and they can try these ideas on, that would be fantastic. Now, with everything and always, there's a caveat. It could be that Microsoft will just use this as a way of sucking developers dry. But, Phil Spencer was a developer himself. He was involved in creating games himself. And I don't think in the long run, he or anyone else would think that that would be a good idea. He might, Microsoft have got a track record of not exactly being the most fan-friendly or the most developer-friendly even. But they seem to be making great strides in that area at the moment. And if they do this in such a way that it allows developers to create new content, either episodically or in some other form, through the auspices of this overarching Game Pass service, then we really could be seeing a renaissance in those kind of story-driven games. This is not going to happen overnight, obviously, and it's going to take a while because obviously Microsoft have got some really big problems to deal with here. Primarily, they're not top of the heap at the moment. You've got Sony ahead of them in terms of sales, but you've also got to establish this Game Pass as well. You've got to create a situation where a large number of the Xbox install base are subscribing to this service. And once they are, then it opens it up to provide a revenue stream to give developers money to be able to create new content and maybe experiment a little bit and try and come out with some new IPs and some new ideas. As I say, it's early days yet, And yeah, I've seen lots of people going on about this and being quite negative about it. And, quite a lot of people don't seem to understand what Game Pass is. Some people think it's the streaming service. Some people don't seem to understand that it's not Steam, that it's a completely different type of service, that you are paying a flat fee and then you can download the games. And so it offers the sort of best of both worlds in a way. It's very similar to the Netflix model, except for obviously with Netflix you are streaming. But with games, I think it's wise at this stage to offer a service that allows you to download the games, so you don't have the latency issues that you would get with a streaming service. But I do think this latest development, that we will be seeing new games on the service, or that we are likely to be seeing new games on the service, is a cracking idea. And I hope there's some developers out there who get the opportunity to come up with some great new ideas and put them on the service. And I hope that Microsoft pay them a decent amount of money as well, and that goes back into them creating new product. I think that's Phil Spencer's intention. I think that's Xbox's intention, but we all know that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. So right now, I'm very positive about the idea. And I just hope that they manage to bring it to fruition. And we do see some new games coming, either games as service, which I say, not my type of thing, or episodic games, or any other sort of games that we might see. This is going to open up perhaps opportunities for different types of games, perhaps. So keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully it'll be a good service and we'll get some developers producing some new and interesting IPs. And, we can all do well out of it. Get good games, developers get paid good money, and Microsoft develop a good service that moves forward into the future. But as usual, what do you guys think? Come and let me know in the comments. Do you think that Game Pass is a good idea? And do you think it's a good idea to have new games coming onto it? As you know, I do, but let's have a conversation about it. And in the meantime, I'm off to get myself a cup of tea, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Bye.